Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us here today. And I cannot tell you all how honored and thrilled I am to be sharing stage with such illustrious people. Ranjitsinh sir, who I have admired and been inspired by, and Mr. Bandeep Singh, whose photography has informed so many aspects of my student journey as a photographer. And as they say, the best place to start is at the beginning. So we'll go to the genesis. We'll start with the genesis of our respective passion projects, as this has been called, Books Distilled with Love. So beautifully put, Manisha. And I was at Ranjit sir's session earlier today, and so it was illuminating. And I have read parts of your earlier books, earlier works, and in the process of mountain mammals of India, and it was absolutely wonderful hearing the anecdotes from yourself and Radhika earlier today, and looking forward to learning about the process that goes into birthing these projects, often unconventional in their nature, which is why we have gathered here for this process leaning talk. So coming back to the genesis, Ranjit sir, your work is so expansive and inspiring, and where was the intersection with this, the mountain mammals of India? And I know the genesis goes really, really way back, but could you tell us more about the genesis and the roots of it?
Thank you very much for your kind words. It would take too long to explain why. As I've said earlier today, mountains have always been an inspiration. And I always, as proverbially, wanted to look the other side of the mountains. Mountains gave me liberation in space and the ability to look at landscapes uncluttered with human habitation. And I could have communion with nature, and to me, nature is God. So that was that. But there was another aspect to it too. I never climbed mountains for the sake of climbing mountains. I climbed mountains to see animals, and in some cases birds. From my childhood and youth, I wanted to see different species and different animals. So I went all over the world looking for animals, and especially the ones which were rarer. And then the attraction of the uncommon. The common, you see, as the title of my first book is, Beyond the Tiger. And I have one thing against the tiger. I love the tiger. I was a member secretary. We started Project Tiger. And I resisted its being converted from I had a long conflict, if I may say so. I think the only one in my life with Dr. Karan Singh, and I mentioned it at the time of the inauguration of the book, or the launching. He wanted to change from the national animal from lion to the tiger, and I resisted. But ultimately, I did give in, and he was right. It should have been always the tiger, which should have been the thing. But be as it may, the tiger blinds people, and they don't want to see anything beyond the tiger. Mm-hmm. But that, in the same way, is so much beyond the tiger. This tiger is like the people coming to India who see Jaipur, Delhi, and Agra and go back home and see they've done India. They've seen India, God Almighty. So, does one realize the kind of species and the variety that they're available. Uh, the mountain animals of the world in which I've dealt with, the larger ones, it's 119 species. The majority of them are they found in Asia, of course. Um, but of the 6 continents, 5 continents originally, the sixth one is Australia, because they are introduced in New Zealand, they are not original. I'm talking about the real mountain mammals, not the hill animals. And these are large ones, because I would have taken all my life to do the small ones, and it would have been an encyclopedia. Anyway, of that, would you believe it, the longest mountain chain in the world is the Andes, 8,500 running kilometers. The shortest mountain range of that height is the Himalayas, and a lot of it is uninhabitable because of its height. But one of the largest continents of the world is Africa. Just 4 species of real mountain mammals in the whole of Africa, and only 2 real mountain mammals in the whole of South America found in the Andes, the mountain tapir and the vicuña. 6 in 2 continents. I have seen 6 in one day in one nala of Ladakh. Of 14 hours of walking and horseback riding. One nala, Kobrang Nala of Changchenmo, Ladakh. And I did not see 2 of them which were there, the Tibetan lynx and the snow leopard. They were there, but I didn't see them that day. So 8 in one nala versus 6 in the 2 entire continents, and we don't even know them. I think we should be ashamed of ourselves, if I may say so. And this is it. We do not know. And even if you go to see the mountains, they only go to see the snow leopard. God bless the snow leopard. What about the ibex? What about the blue sheep? What about the markhor and the rest? And the largest wild sheep in the world, the Tibetan argali. But we don't even know. Kya hai, and the wild ass. And I'll tell you why the wild ass. Not only is it gorgeous, it is the most perfect animal in the world in many ways. It's one animal, the wild ass, the so-called wild ass. The so-called wild ass is lives and thrives, not survives. One of the only 2 subspecies, the wolf, which is also a mountain animal, and the wild ass, from -50 to +50. And and you will never see a thin wild ass. The greatest catecholical thing in the world. And there it is, but we just don't know about them. Sorry.
Thank you. Bandeep, could we reach back into the roots of the project we are about to see?
See, the project that I'm talking about was also like climbing a mountain, but of a different kind, a more abstract one, in terms of the problems of doing the project. The subject of my book is right now the most trending subject of the Naga sadhus. The Kumbh is happening, and on all our, phones, on all our social media, there are images, reels, content of Naga sadhus everywhere. But despite there being the most ubiquitous subjects for photographers, very little is known about the Naga sadhus. You don't see them beyond, the most popular imagery of them sitting inside their tents in their ash-covered bodies, or wildly in doing their snans with a lot of animation. For me, the subject of the Naga sadhu became very intriguing when I first encountered them at the 2013 Kumbh Mela. you're seeing them. I mean, I see them, my experience of them, I can look back in hindsight and say that I saw them, each one of them, as a portal. A portal who's a person who's, a gateway to a tradition. A person who's sitting in time, yet also, traverses across time into a state of timelessness. A timelessness of the tradition of being a sannyasi, of seeking, in the time-honored Indian tradition of seeking moksha, enlightenment, by cutting away all the worldly ties. This became a fascinating thing for them. And the appearance of them, ash-covered in their white with their majestic jatas, their dreadlocks, sitting there in almost kind of a, if I may use the word, a kind of furious detachment, pushing away people with their brusque behavior, abusing, hurling abuses, and on the reels you can see even hitting people. So there is, it became a subject of intrigue, what is this? And as a photographer, you are drawn to this visually. But then my drawing to them was not just visual. I was excited to see what is a Naga Sadhu. I was curious to know, go beyond the doorway, to enter the portal and understand what constitutes a Naga Sadhu. Is he merely a sadhu? Is he involved into some kind of practices, some spiritual practices that we don't know? Is there a larger role? What is their connection to Prayagraj? A question that is being asked a lot around these days, where do they come from? Where do they go after the Kumbh Mela? So all these were questions that came in me also. But what happened, as they say, what you truly desire, the universe conspires to bring it to you. I got a very rare chance of, I got invited to stay in the Juna Akhada of the Naga Sadhus in the 2019 Kumbh. And I set up camp there, and I took a corner of this and set up my lights over there with the hope of photographing the Naga Sadhus. Now, they would not come to the, to be photographed. They would not leave their position, their dhunas as the fire positions, their sthans, and would not come to this thing. But over time, as I started living with them, and I would sit with them, I would converse with them, get into baithaks with them. Baithaks means conversations with them. And slowly they found me not coming from top down, It was like, take a bag and invert it, and you're wanting to photograph it from that perspective. Yes, yes. And so it started, and people started as a trickle, and soon everybody got excited. And because they were familiar with me, because they had seen me, they were part of me, part of my conversations, slowly the camera becomes invisible. Yeah. And between you and the subject, there is an interaction, there is a space that becomes charged, yes. Charged with your expectation and the other person's performance, and to fill that expectation. Yeah. So that is the work that started. It created an unusual set of images, which was unusual from my detached editorial perspective as well. So I decided to work on that, pursue it, which I pursued in this Kumbh Mela also, and come out with a book on that. The dummy of that book is here. I can quickly run through some of the images for you to look at. It's there on the screen. The book is called Bhasmang. Bhasmang means ash-covered, which is also a traditional name for Lord Shiv. And because I find the ash part of their, the bhasm part of their material culture the most exciting and the most, visually striking part. So probably that was the subconscious thing. So that's the book with the back page. I did not want the spine to be a neutral spine with just the type standing out. And I feel the spine in a bookcase is also a very visual thing. So I wanted an eye to be looking back at the reader from the bookcase. So I put the face there as well. This is the end covers. It starts off like that. We come to the rudimentary pages. There's an introduction by Yoga Guru Bharat Thakur, who also is a Mandaleshwar at the Juna Akhada. That's my essay. Right now it's all dummy text, but this book comes out later this year. And that's where the images start. So again, see, these are images where, you are capturing not just the physical, the documentary aspect of the sadhu. You're looking at the body language, you're looking at the internal state, the state of ecstasy, the state of mauj, as they say. So smoking weed is again a very strong material culture element with the Naga sadhus. I mean, there is a whole rationale of why they smoke weed, which is what I get into in the book. I got, this is information that was not available to me anywhere. So what I did was I went back to the basics of journalism, which the tradition that I come from, direct interviews, conversations with the sadhus, in order to somehow explore why do they get into things that are visible in some of these images. I mean, the person looks almost, as a fossilized being from another age. His name is Raman Giri, is again a sadhu from the Juna Akhada. He has a cataract forming in one of his eyes. This is a young Naga sadhu who has just been initiated, 18-year-old boy called Raghav Puri, whose sannyasi name is Angad.
Can I just ask one quick question? Is it lit it from the top?
Yes. So a lot of, a very strong aspect of the displays, of the performance part of the Naga sadhu is displaying their sexual prowess. What they do is, it is to show, the outward manifestation is to attract crowds, but the underlying idea behind this is to show the power of celibacy and the power of abstinence from desire. How the sexual energy is transmuted into spiritual energy. So there is a performative aspect of to the lives of Naga sadhus. They put up costumes. They are almost like visual installations where they sit at the Kumbh Mela, wearing these thousands and thousands of Rudraksh beads, carrying mice on their body. This one, the guy called Raju Puri, who's sitting, is known as the Pigeon Baba. Now he's viral in all the reels of the Kumbh now. But this was in 2019. The eyes, the color of the eyes is a natural color. It's not photoshopped. I mean, this is what happens when you're constantly sitting around the flame, and the effect of weed, of course.
It's more like the shortage of weed.
So this was again from doing images that were purely documentary and and actual just plain portraiture. There was also a set of images that were performative, where you took elements of what they were doing and created images that were more artistic, more metaphorical to something, to the concepts that I'm writing about. So right now, this is the last image. This is, this is just a dummy right now. The idea was to share the book with you.
Thank you. So one aspect that you spoke about as I introduce what I have done in connection to what both of you spoke about, mountains as a commonality with Ranjit sir, and an aspect that you touched down upon, the space between you and the person you are interacting and photographing, the charged aspect of it, that being the relationship that you establish. Often these books stand on the shoulders of those we are building these relationships with, the passion projects, these books distilled with love. You pursue these with a certain sense of stubbornness, and it is often a long haul, as you would see with those much senior to me here, with the work they have done in these books. Coming to the soul of the Nilgiris, which all of you see here, this is a product of 9 years of documentation, research, and work. Thanks, Bandeep. From the Nilgiris Biosphere Reserve, it is a UNESCO recognized biosphere reserve. My focus was on the upper Nilgiris, and I worked deeply with 4 indigenous communities, and 1 native community. And there are over 20 indigenous communities in the Biosphere Reserve, but if I get down to that, then I would have 9 passion projects. So this is the first one. And the genesis to this was, I went as a student and I stayed back as a pupil, and I'm still there in the region. I went as a student of photography, where I was also introduced to Bandeep's work 2 decades ago. And I began to interact with the communities. I started what you would, a photographer starts out as a photo series. I fell in love with the region, started exploring it. And when the interaction with an indigenous elder started, it pivoted this in a completely different direction. I didn't know where I was going with it, but the voice moved from photography to I needed to bring words into it. So why I keep saying relationships is that was the defining factor of this book. And this book rests on the indigenous elders and the communities that I have interacted with in the last 10 years. Now almost 2 decades, I continue to work with them. So, I met an indigenous elder, I think this was almost 10 years ago. This is Janaki Amma, who was one of the guiding forces, and she's there in one of the chapters. She's a healer. She's no more. She was killed very tragically in a human-animal conflict in her own village. And when I met her for the first time, she said to me, "So you are going to come and take what you want and leave." It brings me to the point that Bandeep was talking about earlier. The camera has to become invisible. You cannot go in there with that sense of entitlement that, okay, I can get your photos, I can take exotic portraits. You put the exoticism out of there and you leave the camera behind. Metaphorically, for me, it was physical too. I left the camera behind. I mean, that was so defining in what she said that I was shaken and I did not want to enter the space of appropriating. And so it became a community project, and I slowly earned my way into the lives of 4 different communities in the Nilgiris, the Todas being very, very ancient, who Ranjit sir is also familiar with. And it is the Todas who have embroidered the spines for this book. And so somewhere it became a very community-led, community-forward project. Bookmarks were painted by another forest-dwelling community. Figure out how to push this out in a format that made most sense to me and the story that I was trying to tell. So I'm going to ask both of you also to talk a little about the arc of this journey, from vision to this personal creative commitment to bring it out in the way that you envision it, and why you chose what you chose in how you brought it to the world.
Thank you, Ramya Reddy. Before I proceed to respond to what she has asked me to do, I'd like to commend her on this particular book and to emphasize the most wonderful area about which she talks about, the Nilgiris. Of all the mountain areas of the world that one has traveled, one has to contend with some great heights. They're marvelous, but it's difficult and you don't see any greenery. You see mountains, stark hillsides or rocks and ice and snow. Here is God's own country. It is, I walked from Mukati and Bangitapal all the way to Bison Shola, and you look down on Silent Valley, which was a great fight to save it. And Salim Ali and we were all involved in it. But anyway, you have wilderness, you have greenery, you have greensward, and you have these huge mountain sholas, and of course you have the Varayadu, the Nilgiri Thar, which I've dealt with in my book, The Wild Sheep. It is the southernmost distribution of any true wild mammal in the northern hemisphere. And I can understand why the Thar stopped there, because they think, and it went all the way there. So there it is. And it is gorgeous. And it is something where you can go and see where it's not too much of an exertion, except that tourism can ruin the place as tourism has ruined so many others. But coming back to her question, I have always been very involved in all kinds of things. I didn't start writing any of my books till I was about to retire. I had written my PhD thesis, which then was published in a form of a book, and then that book on Beyond the Tiger, which is the mammals and animals. I included the Great Indian Bustard and the others of South Asia, but that part. The idea was that people kept on saying that तुमने इतना किया है, जो भी किया है, फोटोज लिए हैं, और इतनी तुम्हारे पास नोट्स हैं, डायरी बनाई, किसके लिए रखी है? आई एम सॉरी इफ आई एम इन गुजराती हैं, तुम्हारे मरने के बाद तुम्हारे बच्चे भी नहीं पढ़ेंगे. Really true. So you owe it to the world to publish. And then वो एक जुनून जैसा हो जाता. There is an ego involved there. You want to be known. You want the world to know how much you know. It's true. But it was also a thing of sharing. And then I realized that I've been trying to say the heritage of India and whatever it is, which I have great regard for, and I still keep on fighting for it for what it's worth. And that must be known to the people, because unless it is known, unless it has public support in a democracy or anywhere, you will never get the kind of foot soldiers and the kind of support without which gone are the days when viceroys and the princes could say, "Ye hamari rakhal hai, यहाँ कुछ नहीं, कोई नहीं मारेगा. I shall kill, thou shalt not. वो गया जमाना. You cannot save conservation from the barrels of the gun, as we used to do in the years of yore, where I hail from. Now, so it has to be with the people's support. And to get that alone, you need to have a backing. And unless that is there, there would be no lobby, as it were. It's all a question of building up a lobby.
Thank you.
So I strongly believe that my purpose does not hold to publish a book. You know, it's the job of this community of people called the publishers. But what was happening is that when I shared this idea with some of the publishers, I realized that in most of them, the passion about the project and the subject was subservient to the idea of what can be earned out of it. And that led to a lot of people suggesting a lot of cuts in terms of the paper quality, in terms of, just like you had a problem with the spine, you know, I mean, in terms of the size of the book, in terms of, so the publisher, true to his, sense of business, was looking at what can be produced with minimal expenses. Yeah. Now that does not stand very in symmetry or in alignment with the passion with which you are doing a project. Yeah. And so invariably, reluctantly, you decide to take on the project of bringing out what you want to do in the sense, the way you want to do. And with the idea of taking inspiration from the fact that a lot of great ideas start off from this very premise. To do something, you have to get your hands dirty, to put your, self into it. And so that has been the journey. It is a grueling journey, because as a photographer, as a primary creator, you are engaged with the subject in a very, very different manner, and your passion leads you to that point. This is an execution, something that you are not trained for. This is more your learning rather than your instinctual understanding of what it is. So yes, I am learning about it. As I started off with just the idea of putting out a book of visuals about the Naga Sadhus. But as I was researching for my essay for the book, and I found the information to be so scanty and so sketchy that I realized that it becomes a kind of almost a responsibility to put out that information, and the part of that conversations that I'm having, and all the information that I'm I'm acquiring through the conversations with the sadhus, that I felt has to be part of the book, talking about it, so that when a person looks at the image, he is informed about the context as well. I mean, a simple thing that I'll leave for you to think about is I was having a conversation with what is the Naga Sadhus connect to the Kumbh Mela? Why do they come to the Kumbh Mela? Now, apart from the fact that there were several reasons, a very interesting part of the conversations with a lot of Naga Sadhus will not tell you about, will not reveal, is something which I don't know how many people know that. The Naga Sadhus take the karmic load of the river. The Ganga, which is supposed to wash away all the sins, where do the sins go? It is the Naga Sadhu who gets into the water at the Shahi Snan before the people and absorbs all the karmic negativity of the river, and then burns it at his fireside with the chanting of the mantra. Wow. Now this is something which is a fascinating story, for some, but it is a part of the conversations that happened, And if this thread is to be explored, you will find that there is a reason for that. There is a reason for that why the ash-covered sadhus get into the water first. You know, there is a reason why this festival, which is the largest festival of the country, does not have any god association to it. And Naga sadhus, which are primarily Shaivites, and also there are Vaishnava akhadas, what is their connect to go to this thing? So it is there you understand a larger role, that it is not just ritual bathing. There is something larger than that which we have lost a touch with. You know, so those are aspects, those are elements that come into this book.
Thank you. Yes. Sure. No.
Just a minute.
Of course, absolutely. Sir, please.
In the context of what was said about one's experience with publishing, if I may.
Yes.
You see, as my colleague here pointed out, there is, and this is something I would like to say with some feeling, and the hope that it could perhaps lead to some rectification. A passion project, a person does this because he passionately believes in what he's done. And he's very passionate about the product because it has cost him more than one can imagine, as anybody would. A photographer, I've been somewhat of a photographer, not like him. But anyway, and one wants that quality. One doesn't do it to make money. Money is always nice and wonderful to have. But it's not a money objective mostly, or almost all, in my case. But one wants to see the best production of it. As a German friend said, the publisher doesn't know that your book is your lifeblood. And sometimes the publisher, I'm sorry to say, is crass enough not to care. I'm sorry if I have to say this, but I would like it to be known here. And I've had this experience of, I think they look at it totally from a commercial point of view. My first book was Beyond the Tiger. The publisher has gone and changed it, and I can show you, I have copies of it. The same book published another way, and it doesn't give me a farthing. I can sue him, but it'll take me 25 years to, I think by that time, would be done out. So that is the kind of thing. I'm fortunate, and I like to record this, that the present publisher, which is Penguin, and Vaishali, I hope she's listening, she understood me, and she went that extra mile to produce something, because I wanted photographs as well as the text, so it had to be in art paper, which meant the cost went up very high.
Yeah.
But she understood this, so I just want to record this, that there are publishers who can see this, and there are publishers who will sell them down the alley. And I was advised even, okay, Hindustan mein publishing mat karna, bahar karna, you will get a better deal. But this is not nice.
Yeah.
I think it needs to be said that publishers also must realize that they are dealing with the lifeblood of the author.
So beautifully said. Thank you, sir. Thank you for that. You really summed that up. We have time for 2 questions. Yes.
This is for Mr. Ranjitsinh ji. Sir, a famous polar biologist said the animals don't want to see us. How do we mitigate the man-animal conflict, because there are so many of us? And for Bandeep ji, did you cover Aghoris in your book also? And for you, Ramya ji, do you include Kodaikanal in the Nilgiris or no?
No.
Thank you.
No. Kodaikanal is a part of Palnis.
Animals don't want human company, and there's a good reason for it. But then they get so habituated to it. Like I went the other day to Jalana, that they don't even lift. their head to see you go by. They've got so accustomed to. You see, I'm a firm believer, and this is the problem. I mean, and the world over, but particularly in a country like ours, man-animal conflict. And there are ways of solving and approaching it, and I've dealt with this during my 2 tenures, Director of Wildlife and Forest Sector, but I won't go into all that. Now, the thing is this, and this is axiomatic. Man should not be afraid of animals, and animals should not be afraid of man, but there should be mutual respect. We must respect animals for what they are and what they can do, and they must respect us for the same reason. You must maintain your distance, and you mustn't allow too much familiarity, which is now being broken. The animals now are walking through the streets. That's not on. They come, of course, to eat the feral dogs, but I mean, and whatever else. I mean, through streets of Gaur and bison walking through in Kunur and all that. I mean, that's not on. And elephants all over. So everybody, but then please understand why they are coming there. Because they don't have food. Secondly, because you have made them into little islands of survival and seas of humanity with no escape, no way whereby they can go from one place to other without trampling on something. So we have to now provide for the thing, and there is a price to pay for it. Are we prepared to do that? So while we do need to have them in a place like Jalana, there has to be a certain buffer, a certain boundaries of where you don't overreach. Thank you.
No, I did not cover Aghoris in this, because Aghoris is a completely different sect of sadhus.
So we're running. Okay. Sir.
Maharaj Sahab, I don't know if you remember, but we were blessed to receive you at our home in Pondicherry in the late 90s. And your presence there did two things. One, the people from Auroville who attended at your visit took up a green work that is so intense today you cannot see the sun even on the hottest day of the year. Second, you inspired me to write a poem that I dedicated to you.
Can we have just a question, please? Yeah.
It's a poem that's dedicated to him, and I thought you would give me a minute to read it, if I may. May I? Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for understanding, sir. So that was an incredibly amazing session. Can we have a round of applause for this?